Welcome to the Great American Collectible Show, seen Wednesdays on the Sports Collectors Daily Facebook page and the Great American Collectibles Facebook page. You can also listen to us on iHeartRadio, Pandora, and Spotify. The Great American Collectibles Show is brought to you by the National Sports Collectors Convention and Sports Collectors Daily. Tonight's headlines are brought to you by Sports Collectors Daily. For all your hobby news, features, and more, go to sportscollectorsdaily.com. And now your host, Tom Zappola, and Red Sox Hall of Famer, Rico Petrocelli.
Rico, my man, how are you, buddy?
Good to see you again every couple of weeks, and we got a special guest today.
We do, and he's right on camera with us right now, our good friend. He's a legend.
Yeah.
He's a hobby legend.
That's right.
Right? He really is. I mean, he's very, very, what's the word? He doesn't like to talk about things like you.
That's
but he is.
He's now the time. What are we doing the show? 7 years.
7 years, yeah.
In that period of time, he's done more to bring this the industry to more success.
Former CEO of Collectors Universe,
Right.
president of PSA, author, hobby expert Joe Orlando. How are you, Joseph?
Father of two.
Hey,
Father of two boys.
much, but I appreciate it.
Father of two hellions, right?
That is true.
And now an executive vice president for Heritage Auction. Great show today. Joe is going to be with us for most of the show. We have Jared Kavlie from Pristine coming in. And don't forget, by the way, you can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, listen to us on your favorite podcast platform like Spotify, iHeart, Pandora, Ask Siri, Ask Alexa. Hey, play the Great American Collectible Show. Right?
It's great. Yeah, absolutely.
But listen, we're going to open up the show today with... for those of you that are watching the show and not from the Boston area, we lost an icon this past week in the city of Boston and in New England, Tim Wakefield, Red Sox Hall of Famer. Now, Tim was a very dear friend of Rico's, number one. And number two, he played for the Red Sox for 17 years. But he was much more than, third in all-time wins and all of that stuff. But
yeah.
Tim to Red Sox Nation was so much more than just a Red Sox Hall of Fame pitcher.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he did so much for the community, the Jimmy Fund for cancer problems, and the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. It's really a shock.
Everybody, Joe, everybody in Red Sox Nation is still in shock that he passed away so quickly. I mean, again, for our viewers and listeners, Tim was doing color for the Red Sox TV broadcast. He was sharing it with Kevin Youkilis and Dave O'Brien. Mm-hmm. 3 weeks ago, he was doing color for the Red Sox. 3 weeks ago. And then evidently started complaining about some headaches, went in, and then it's amazing how quickly he went. So
sad.
Really very, very sad situation.
57 years old.
And I was watching. The thing is that on Sunday, I don't even know if you were watching on Sunday. On Sunday, it was the last game of the season. Red Sox playing the Orioles. Yeah. And the pregame show with Jim Rice and what's his name, the other guy?
Donato?
No, the I can't remember his name.
Babe Ruth.
They were told on the air live that he had passed away.
Oh wow, that must have been.
And it was amazing. It was very, very shocking on the air to watch these guys getting word that he had passed away, and then when they switched to Dave O'Brien in the booth with Youkilis, he couldn't talk. I mean, he was crying. It's really sad. But anyways, a tribute to Tim Wakefield, Red Sox Hall of Famer. Rico, I know he was a friend of yours. And by the way, Tim he put the arm on us. I was telling Joe, he put the arm on Ellen and I and Lisa Sherber for the Tim Wakefield Foundation for the Jimmy Fund about 4 or 5 years ago. I had to drive up to Fenway and drop off 200 books of the Cracker Jack.
He was good at what he
did. That they use as a giveaway for his golf tournament. So anyways, Tim Wakefield, rest in peace. Yes. All right, let's get to our other good friend here, Mr. Orlando from Heritage Auctions. Joe, first of all, man, thanks for coming on. How's it going with Heritage? I mean, this is now you've been with them now for A little over a year?
Yeah, a little over a year now.
And how's it working out? I mean, it's a different world other than what you were doing. Are you liking it? Is it exciting? Tell us a little bit about, are you traveling a lot?
Yeah, no, it's been a great experience, and you go into it with high expectations because I was a big fan of Heritage, for a long time as a hobbyist, as a customer, and also as someone at PSA and Collectors who worked with Heritage and serviced them, for submissions and so forth. So had high expectations coming in, and it's exceeded them for me. So I've really enjoyed it. Do a little bit of traveling with, for consigners, auctions, that sort of thing, working on content, working on a couple special projects behind the scenes, and hopefully we can talk about some of those in the coming months. But it's been a great experience so far.
You were doing a newsletter. Are you still doing the newsletter? Or you were writing, because some of them were fabulous.
Oh, thanks. No, I've been writing for both the Intelligent Collector, which is not just sports, it's everything. It covers a variety of categories at Heritage, and then also the sports newsletter at Heritage as well.
Good. Is this some part of your job that you really love? I mean, I know you love it all, but is there a particular thing, that really gets you excited?
Yeah, it's funny. When I came on board, or right before I came on board, someone at Heritage said, we'd like to use you like a Swiss Army knife. And I kind of like that idea because I get to do a lot of different things. I don't get, to do just one thing. I get to kind of, do a lot of different things, and that makes it more enjoyable. But I would say, gosh, of all the things, I think it's probably a combination of both. I really enjoy the kind of the education, the content side of things. And then I also, look, I know it sounds corny, but helping consigners. I mean, like helping them work through collections and trying our best at Heritage to maximize results. There's something about that I really enjoy. And so you're building relationships with these individuals, and then again, trying to assist them in bringing their collections to market. I mean, as a fellow collector, I appreciate that role very much.
Yeah. Joe, have you had to find yourself in a position where you had to break bad news to a consigner after sitting with them and say, it's not real?
Of course. It's a little bit different because now I can just blame PSA. But it's a little bit different of a role. Of course, before, you are literally in the position, as a third-party authentication and grading service, you are the judge and jury.
Sure.
Here, you're sort of an intermediary, but yeah, sometimes you have to deliver that news when you're evaluating a collection for consignment, and you might recognize some things that are okay to continue on, and then some other things that are likely not genuine, and you have to deliver that. But it's much better being in this role and delivering that message versus the prior role.
The modern market, of course, that's...
stop with this modern market stuff.
All right, you'll
Please.
See. Joe, is it coming back? I know it had a rough period of time, but how's it doing now?
Hopefully not well.
See?
I'm sorry.
See what I mean?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
Mr. Over here. Look, it's certainly over the past year, the modern market has corrected. And that's, by the way, I know it's painful for some while it's happening, but that's not necessarily a bad thing for the long-term health of the hobby. And I will say this, in case I forget to mention it later, one of the things I was really pleasantly surprised about is that you had this modern market correction happening in prior months leading up to the National. And you were there, Tom, you saw it with your own eyes. Record-breaking attendance and an absolute ton of younger people at that show after the market corrected itself. And to me, that tells me that this is sustainable, that people are sticking with it, even with the correction in prior, periods of market correction, going back 20 years, going back 10 or 15 years before that. It's very common for people to kind of jump off when those things happen. They bail on what they just jumped into. And in this case, it was, for anyone who was at the National this year, it was really a sight to see, again, so many people overall, but so many young people And that was after the market had already started to correct itself. So that was extremely encouraging just from an industry standpoint.
Joe, do you think that, and by the way, we're talking to obviously to Joe Orlando, Executive Vice President of Heritage. Joe, do you think that with that correction and the young people that were at the National, do you think any of them kind of dipped their toe into the vintage waters as a result of the market correcting itself to kind of educate themselves and maybe dabble in it a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's just generally the natural progression of things. You know, people come in, of course, what do we all do when we start? We start collecting modern. That's what we all start collecting generally. I mean, not in all cases, but in 99.9% of cases. And I think it's just part of the natural evolution or progression of a collector's journey. And so, yeah, once people come in, they get a taste of it. I think, you know, as we've talked about before, as someone who has collected both in my life, I completely understand and appreciate the attraction to collecting current players. Why? Because it's a reality show every day. If you're watching the sport, it's the story is being written right before your eyes, and there's an exciting part of that. But to balance out your collection, I always found it interesting to do, even when I was a young person, to do both, because you start learning about history and you go back in time, and the vintage, while vintage can go up and down too. I mean, a market is a market. It can go up, it can go down, it could stay the same, but the swings in vintage generally are not as great. They're not as big. So it kind of steadies the collecting ship if you expand a little into vintage as well. So again, incredibly encouraging attendance and sites at the National this year.
Yeah, I have to ask this question. It's in view of Wakefield passing away, and of course Brooks Robinson. Joe, when a player passes away,
good question.
Does his card increase the value? Or, I mean, a guy like Brooks Robinson, I would just love to have his card. You know what I mean? I have an autograph of him too, but I mean, he was the greatest. Does it go up or just stay the same?
I think the short answer is yes, but the effect in terms of how much it affects the player depends on the circumstances, I think, around that person's passing. Generally speaking, if it's something that is more expected and it's taken time to get there, it's not as dramatic. But when it happens suddenly, it tends to bring that person's accomplishments to the forefront in a way, coupled with the shock of the event. So, for example, going back in a little bit of time here, when Kobe tragically perished in that helicopter crash, I mean, that was so sudden and so unexpected. It did something to his memorabilia and cards that, it was a very sort of rare instance where his material exploded after that point, because I think it really brought his life and accomplishments, to the forefront, and people, again, because it was so shocking, he was so young, it was so unexpected. It had, I think, a greater impact and maybe a more lasting impact. And in some cases, in the case of Brooks Robinson, obviously he was an older gentleman, a wonderful player and a wonderful person. It has a little bit of an effect, but it's not as shocking. And so I think there's always some impact because it brings the accomplishments back into the public eye, into the forefront. But I think the degree of impact differs depending on the circumstances around the person's passing.
A little later on, we're going to talk about, in my segment, another Gax moment, we're going to talk about Brooks. I know he was a good friend of yours. Joe, last week, we got onto the subject. Danny Wilkin from Memory Lane was on with us. And I brought up the question that I have mixed feelings about. Influences. I go on. My point was that there are some really good, legitimate influences. And then there are some, quote, influences that are trying to manipulate the market. And based on the fact, if you do a little digging, that some of these, quote, influences are really representing bigger companies and encouraging younger people to zero in on a particular card or cards. I find it very frustrating because not all influencers are like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh boy, this is an interesting subject. Yeah, I would say this. I certainly don't think it's limited to our hobby.
Oh, and I agree with that. Yes, you're right.
It's sort of this is a generational thing. It's
Yes.
a cultural thing happening where it's amazing. You can be an influencer. You could have a platform on various, social media. Yet you don't necessarily have to know what you're talking about. So I think it's really important that hobbyists discern between influencers, whether it's podcasters, video, whatever their platform is, anything on social media, to discern between quality content and if they're adding value to your experience, or if they're just trying to push a certain agenda, or if they're just influencers without a whole lot of knowledge, or they're not providing a lot of hobby expertise. So you could be you could have a tremendous following and not necessarily have much value to offer or much expertise. So it's just important for hobbyists to kind of discern there and make sure that they're getting value in return for their time, because that's basically how influencers are making their time, through clicks and the time spent watching their product, their videos, their content.
Right?
It's great. It's great information for the collectors that are watching.
Especially if you're a young collector and you're watching. Listen, if an influencer is going to make a recommendation, fine, listen to what he has to say. But you've got to do some of the research and some of the work yourself to research a particular card, a particular player. Right?
Yeah, of course. You want to know something about it, but as Joe has said in the past, that most of the young, especially the young collectors, they might love a particular player or, just love collecting. And so, they're going to go in that direction.
But you got to peel some of the onion,
I understand.
Some of the skin off, because a lot of times as you peel the skin off the onion, you're going to see that, hey, this guy that's recommending this card kind of has money invested in this company. You know what I mean? And it happens, and it's happened a lot, and you got to be careful of that. That's all.
Oh yeah, veteran collectors.
Yeah.
Might be able to do that, but I'm talking about the younger ones.
Well, me too, exactly.
Yeah, those.
Joe, what were you going to say?
I mean, even in the modern market, we've talked about it before. The dollars have gotten so big in the current, environment. So even with modern, you have to educate yourself. You have to take the time, ask questions, ask other veterans of the hobby. But really, again, it's about delivering value. And if those influencers or podcasters, social media personalities, if they're delivering value for you, great.
Yeah.
But there's a lot who don't. It's just more about, shock value and clickbait and that sort of thing, which is not the same thing as delivering expertise and value. So just something to keep in mind as you, again, go through your hobby journey.
Good. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Joe Orlando from Heritage Auctions is in the house. When we come back, another Gax moment. Hang in there. We'll be right back.
Since 1996, Brian Drent and the staff at Denver's Mile High Card Company have led the charge in the collectibles hobby. Mile High is a full-service dealer specializing in buying and selling cards, and offers a competitive consignment program for all collectors. Whether it be their computerized want list service, appraisals, or auction services, Mile High has it all. If you've been searching for a company with a selection of high-grade vintage 1888 to 1970 baseball cards and memorabilia that shares your passion, aim high, Mile High. Go to milehighcardco.com or call 303-840-2784 for more information.
For more than 30 years, Robert Edward Auctions has been the industry leader when it comes to helping you realize the most money for your baseball cards and sports memorabilia. In addition to their unparalleled reputation for honesty and integrity, they reach the largest number of bidders in the business and offer lower seller's fees, as well as generous cash advances up front on your valuable material. Contact them today at 908-226-9900. That's 908-226-9900 or at robertedwardauction.com.
This is Brian Drent, president of Mile High Card Company. Is your sports card and memorabilia collection properly insured? For easily replaced personal property, homeowners insurance is all most people need. But for prized possessions that you may have spent a lifetime collecting, it doesn't go nearly far enough. Collectables Insurance Services has been insuring for over 50 years. They offer a full range of protection and a $0 deductible at an affordable rate with no appraisals required. I know because they insure my collection. If you have a minute, go to collectinsure.com and learn more about insuring your personal card or memorabilia collection.
Hi, this is Dan from Memory Lane Auctions, here to remind you that the renowned Memory Lane Collectibles Company has served as a beacon of light to the collecting community for the past several decades. Indeed, folks, it has been our utmost privilege and pleasure to provide the most enthusiastic collectors with an abundance of the finest sports cards and memorabilia for America's most coveted sports personalities via our world-class auctions. Whether you choose either a private sale transaction or the auction route, Memory Lane cordially invites you to reach out to us to maximize the value of your prized possessions. Also, it is not just sales that we pride ourselves on being the best of the rest, because if you are seeking a particular keepsake for your esteemed gathering, we will be relentless in our quest to find that special piece to fulfill your collecting dreams. So no time to wait. Reach out to us today for the purposes of capitalizing on our unparalleled marketing capabilities. Simply pick up the phone and dial 877-606-5263. That's 877-606-LANE, or find us on the World Wide Web at www.memorylaneinc.com. Now is the time for your valued consignment to ultimately become another one of Memory Lane's record-setting prices.
How would you like to own the bat that was used by your favorite player when he hit that towering home run or game-winning base hit? Now look no further than JT Sports, specializing in the sale and authentication of professional game-used bats. As the official authenticators of professional model game-used bats for PSA DNA, JT Sports will guarantee the authenticity of any bat purchased from them. JT Sports also buys and sells game-worn uniforms, gloves, and baseball equipment. The unique quality of the collectible is what JT Sports is all about. Give them a call at 609-487-8003 or check them out at GameUseBats.com.
Mr. P, why don't you tell us about our good friends at the CSA show, Chantilly?
What if I don't want to?
Well, you have to.
I know.
You're getting paid big money.
It's a great show. CSA show is proud to present the Chantilly show being held on October 20th to the 22nd, held at the Dulles Expo Center in Chantilly, Virginia, just minutes from the Dulles International Airport. They're celebrating over 27 years at the same location. There'll be over 300 dealer tables exhibiting on over 100,000 square feet of space. With both vintage sports cards and memorabilia, as well as modern-day sports treasures, you won't have to look very far for that special card, bat, ball, or autograph. Major auction houses and third-party grading companies will be on site to assist you with your collecting and authentication needs. Now, look, let me tell you, look at this. Some of your favorite superstars will be on hand, including baseball legends Johnny Bench, Cal Ripken
Hold on,
Jr.
Johnny Bench will kick your ass.
Cal Ripken Jr., the greatest shortstop, I think, in my opinion, Ozzie Smith.
Second best.
Pete Rose, Football Hall of Famers, Joe Montana, Jerome Bettis, Mean Joe Green, and many, many more. For more information, go to this Chantilly show where you can find all of your sports collectible treasures. Are you kidding me? I would go to this. I got to.
Oh, by the way, well, hold on. By the way, There is a rumor circulating.
Johnny Bench.
Yeah, kick your ass.
Oh, so what?
Well, I'm just saying.
Not the only one.
I'm just saying.
Go ahead.
Not for nothing, but there's a rumor circulating that one Rico Petrocelli and possibly John Mallory will be at the CSA shows in March doing a book signing, autograph signing, doing the show from there. Any truth to that?
No.
That's what I'm hearing.
Nope.
All right. It is time for another Gax moment brought to you by our good friend Paul Borges and PB Collectables, your neighborhood card shop. Go to pbcollectables.com to find that special card or piece of memorabilia. This one here has to do with a Hall of Famer. As a matter of fact, it's one Hall of Famer honoring another. In 1971, my partner, Red Sox Hall of Famer Rico Petrocelli, made the move from shortstop to third base. Now, here's the backstory to that. The backstory is that the Red Sox were actually trying to make a deal for all-star third baseman Ron Santo, and Rico was going to stay at shortstop. However, the deal fell through, so then they had an opportunity to acquire another Hall of Fame shortstop, Luis Aparicio. So they asked Rico, they said, Rico, would you mind making the move from shortstop to third base? And Rico, being Rico, said, absolutely not. I have no problem with it. I mean, we're bringing in Aparicio. This guy's great. And Red Sox knew they weren't going to lose a step with Rico at third base. Last week, Rico and I were having dinner with myself and Ellen and Rico and Elsie at a local restaurant. And I asked Rico the question. I said, Rico, I know you were really good friends with Brooks Robinson. You guys played together for 13 years. What kind of a guy was he? And did you learn a lot from him? And Rico said, listen, there were two third base mentors of mine. One was Red Sox Hall of Famer Frank Malzone, who I learned a lot from, working on a daily basis. He said, but playing against Brooks and knowing Brooks, I began watching him like a hawk. I had the honor of this is a quote from Rico, I had the honor and privilege of playing against Brooks for 13 years. We became very good friends over that time, and when I made the move to third, I watched him very closely. His first step was lightning fast, and his hands were beyond spectacular. I mean, an 18-time All-Star, 16 consecutive Gold Gloves, American League MVP, 2 World Championships, just a phenomenal player. And Rico was adamant in telling me that you could not meet a nicer guy than Brooks Robinson. So I guess the bottom line here is that an 18-time All-Star with 16 consecutive Gold Gloves, my partner telling me what a great player he was, I guess you can't argue with Rico on this one. And that's another T206 moment. That's another Gax moment.
All right.
Okay, we are chatting with Joe Orlando from Heritage Auctions.
A Hall of Famer.
Who's that, Joe?
Joe.
Oh, Joe is definitely a Hall of Famer. Joe is definitely a Hall of Famer.
I'm not sure of what.
Joe, I just I did the Gax moment as you just saw, and it was a Freudian slip because years ago I used to do a similar segment called Another T206 Moment. You remember those?
I remember that we did the little short videos too.
We did a lot of those. We used to do them on Facebook and YouTube, and they got tremendous reviews. I would talk about a T206 player and do a narrative like this, and the byline was, and that's another T206 moment.
Yeah,
so that was a
nice.
Freudian
Cool.
slip. Joe, you guys have an auction coming up. Actually, I think it's going on now with these Type 1 photos. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
All photos?
Yeah, so in this month we have an auction that has photos from all different sort of walks of life or categories. So it's not just sports; it's a all-encompassing photo auction that has photos from their historical, entertainment, of course, sports. But we decided to kind of mix things up and put together an auction like that would have a little something for everyone. And there's there's some very, very interesting photos in this auction coming up.
You know, I just have a question. What a photo, I'm just talking about the worth of it. What if it's a photo to someone? In other words, say Brooks Robinson signs a photo for,
To whoever.
yeah, to you, let's say.
But it's going to be a type 1 photo.
No, yeah, let's say it is. Is that as valuable as just the autograph? So he,
Yeah, if we're focusing on personalizations versus non-personalized signed photos, whether they're original vintage photos or not, again, it depends. The general rule is, look, if you, all things being equal about the photo, if you can find one of Babe Ruth or Lou Gehrig with a non-personalized versus personalized, the non-personalized one has more demand because that's the way collectors like it. They like it without the name. However, there are plenty of cases where that personalization means something. It's from one famous person to another, or it's something significant. It marks a significant moment in time, and that personalization or inscription matters to the content of that photo and autograph. So the general rule is, if you're just talking about your run-of-the-mill sort of autograph rules, look, most people would prefer non-personalized, but if the personalization connects to something important, there are exceptions to the rule.
Joe, based on the auctions that you guys run, the weekly auctions, the Sunday sports auctions, the platinum auctions, the monthly stuff that you guys do, how big of an inventory do you guys have for cards and memorabilia? I mean, you must have a warehouse, because I'm sure, I know that you guys are probably working around the clock accumulating, but I mean, you must have enough inventory down the road to be significant.
Well, it's constant. And when I say constant, it's constant in and it's constant out. So because we're doing weeklies, we're doing monthlies, we're doing these special events like Platinum that have a tremendous amount of cachet. There's a lot of in and out, but for anyone who has had the opportunity to come out to the Dallas headquarters, I mean, it's the building is the size of a few football fields.
Really?
It's enormous. I mean, and keep in mind that Heritage, I work for sports specifically, but Heritage caters to a wide variety of categories. I mean, we were talking not long ago, it was a few months back. I mean, we had the Cheers bar, in addition to like the All in the Family set and all these things that are actually much larger and more cumbersome than, let's say, coins or cards or autographed photos. So the amount of space that Heritage needs to keep this machine moving at all times, it's a tremendous operation, and it's an enormous facility.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the vault. What happened with the vault?
Yeah, this whole vault thing. Let's talk about that. The vault. What the hell is the vault?
Well, again, we could spend a lot of time on this. So a few years back, some companies in the industry started to work on this vault concept.
Yeah, he's going to be very careful here.
It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. If you're someone who likes to be surrounded by your collectibles and want to touch and feel them, it's certainly not for you. However, I will say this. Because the market has changed so much and the dollars have gotten so much bigger, pretty much across the board, across all sports categories. I mean, I can tell you, I've talked to collectors that have started to say they don't feel comfortable having all of their collectibles in their homes anymore. And so, for some of them, it's a way to protect their collections, and perhaps they can enjoy their collectibles in a digital form, whether it's through photos on their phone, whatever it is. But part of it is security and safety, and it's a matter of comfort. Of how many times have we talked about insurance, collectibles insurance on your program here? Right. I mean, some people would rather have their most prized or highest value material off-site, away from their home, away from their office, and so. For some, it may not be for you and it may not be for me, but for some, I can understand that feeling. And so the concept is still there. there's been, it's sort of fluctuated in terms of popularity, but I don't think the concept, I can't imagine it's going to go away. I do think it's one of those concepts that's here to stay. Whether or not the majority of collectors take part in that remains to be seen, but there is a purpose for it if you're feeling that way about your collection.
Yeah.
We are chatting with Joe Orlando from Heritage Auctions, and guess what time it is right now, Rico?
It's time for
On Deck with
God.
Rico.
He answered the tough questions. On deck with Richard Petroselli.
On Deck with Richard Petroselli. I love that. On Deck with Richard Petroselli. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. All right, it's time for our segment On Deck with Rico, brought to you by our good friend Brian Dwyer and the great staff at REA Auctions. Don't forget to get your bid in by going to robertedwardauctions.com. That's Robert Edward Auctions for extraordinary results and extraordinary service. Now, this question this week was submitted by my son-in-law out in California, Dan Shapiro.
Okay.
And Dan, if you're listening, there's no shot of you getting a T-shirt. Zero. Just letting you know.
Nice.
All right. So
Nice
he
father.
said, "Can you ask?" And you've met Dan. He said, "Can you ask Rico a couple of questions? He wants your thoughts. You ready?
Yes, I
Killebrew or Kayline?
Killebrew, who would I rather have?
Killebrew or Kayline? Who's the better
That's
player?
Two.
You got to answer the question.
All right, but let me just say, Killebrew and Kayline, two different styles.
I know that.
If I want home runs and RBIs, I mean, every year 40 home runs, over 100 RBIs, I want Killebrew. Okay.
Yeah.
Kayline was a better all-around player.
Okay, you can only pick one guy in your
Well,
team.
I'm not.
You have to. You can only pick one guy. Who's it going to be?
I'll take Killebrew.
I would go with Killebrew.
Yeah, geez.
Joe,
it's a
who would you
tough
go with?
Kayline was great.
Who would I go with?
Yeah.
Well, I while I didn't have the privilege of watching either one play while I was born or after I was born, I've always been I'm enamored with the power guys. So of course I would take Killebrew.
I agree with that.
Yeah. No, Killebrew's.
Could change the game with one swing. That.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Brett or Boggs?
Oh, my God. Oh, Boggs made himself a hell of a third baseman. Gold glove, actually, close to it. I mean, Brett was just a great player, all-around player. Not a great fielder, adequate. But I got to go with Brett. Boy, it's just tough. Boggs, 1 year, Boggs hit one pop-up to the infield the whole year.
He hit 24 home runs 1 year, too.
Yeah, I mean, Boggs was a great hitter.
Great eyes.
Yeah, and although Brett was a hell of a player.
Joe, what do you like?
Obviously both great all around players, but I think Brett's probably a little bit better all the way around, a little bit more pop in his bat. Defensively, maybe a little, again, I defer to Rico on that, but my impression growing up, and watching both of them play was that maybe Brett was a little bit better defensively as well. So I think all the way around, I'd probably go with Brett.
Rick, last one.
Great one. Great.
Sudden Sam McDowell or Sonny Siebert?
Ooh, I got the chills.
Sudden
now.
Sam or Sonny Siebert?
Wow. Well, Sonny's 1 year we had him, and he had 16.
16 wins.
16 wins, and he had a chance to get 20.
Yeah, and he was up in age then, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, a little bit. 30-something, 5, let's say. But he says, no, I'm going to shut it down because if I go 20, they're going to expect it every year.
What?
He was a heck of a. He had great stuff, but I got to go with Sam. 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
You faced him a lot, right?
Yeah, a lot. And if he had some better hitting teams, I think he would have had an even better record. But he had great stuff, boy. I tell you, we go into Cleveland, he knock Yaz down every single game, man alive.
Would he really?
Oh, yeah. But Yaz, it didn't bother Yaz.
I used to love him. Again, Joe, just before your time, but Sam McDowell, man, he was like
Sudden Sam.
He was good. He was very good.
Yes, he was.
All right, let's get back to Mr. Orlando. Joe, what's hot right now in the memorabilia world? Is it still the basic? I mean, shirts, game used shirts, jerseys, bats, balls. What about ephemera, contracts, tickets, things like that? Is there anything in particular that is like jumps out?
It's funny. In thinking about this, look, really, when you started off with game worn and game used, I think game worn and game used that is special. Some ones that jerseys and bats and that sort of thing that you can pin to either a great season, a great game, something like that, a world championship season. Those just continue to pull away from the rest of the pack. But I'm going to take a different approach to this because over the past 2 or 3 years, we've watched really almost every segment of sports collectibles have its moments. We've talked about tickets going up, and
Right.
we talked about original photos earlier, vintage photos. We've talked about cards. Of obviously they led the way in exploding in this market over the past few years. I'm going to take a different sort of approach to this question, if it's okay. Something that I'm noticing in the market is the generational cycle taking place. And what I mean by that is there seems to be a couple of different generational cycles. So let me explain real quick. So you have that, what I would call kind of the first cycle, where people get into, let's call it around the age of 30, they're settling into their lives. They're far enough away from their youth where now nostalgia means something. So you'll see kind of one generational cycle take place when people get into that age range. But now I'm in what I would call the next generational cycle, which is I'm going to be 52 this month. And so I grew up, the 70s have a special place in my heart as a collector and a sports fan. So what I've noticed is now when I'm watching our auctions and other auctions, what's happening in the market, 70s material is starting to get a lot more respect. I mean, you're starting to see prices for both sets and individual cards in the 70s. And for the longest time, I mean, if you go back 10, 15, 20 years, the 70s didn't get a whole lot of respect. It's almost like the respect stopped in the 60s, like 50s and 60s cards, memorabilia, that sort of thing, had one level of respect. And then in the 70s, it kind of dropped off. That's changing. I mean, we had several full sets in this last auction that just closed go into six figures, 100 grand, 200 grand plus for 75 and 79 and 71s. And so now people of my generation that are in their, let's say, 50 plus age, for the next, as long as we're on this earth, breathing oxygen for the next 25 years, that's going to be nostalgia for someone like me and people that grew up during the same time that I did. So all of a sudden, the players from those generations, whether it's game worn or other types of memorabilia, or the cards from that generation, are going kind of next level. So if you pay attention to the auction results, you certainly see that with cards, and you're starting to see that with memorabilia as well, especially game worn and game used.
We are chatting with Joe Orlando from Heritage Auctions. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Jared Kavlie from Pristine Auctions is going to join us. Hang in there. We'll be right back.
Pristine Auction is a family-owned and operated online auction specializing in autographed memorabilia, sports cards, coins, art, and collectibles. Since their founding in 2010, they've grown to 2 facilities in Phoenix, Arizona, totaling over 60,000 square feet. Jared Kavlie and an incredible staff of over 150 team members serve a very large customer base and enjoy every minute of it. By working with leading authentication companies, Pristine ensures all items are 100% authentic. In addition, third-party authenticators regularly travel to Pristine Auction to provide authentication services on site. Pristine Auction strives to operate its business in a way that's honoring to God, their families, and their customers. With a strong focus on speed, quality, and premier customer service, their mission is to be the leading online auction for every level of collector and fan. Pristine also works for Hope Sports and Identity Hoops International, traveling to Mexico to build houses for the less fortunate. Pristine Auction offers several online auction formats with thousands of auctions ending each day. For more information, go to pristineauction.com. That's Pristine Auction, the best in the business.
If you are a discerning collector interested in owning the most important pieces in the hobby, look no further than Leland's Auctions. The original sports auction and appraisal house, Leland's was established in 1985 by legendary Pioneer founder Joshua Leland Evans. And today, President Mike Hefner carries on their tradition. From the Tom Brady card and memorabilia collection to the famed Boston Garden Auction to high-end card auctions from every major sport. Leland's has always maintained the highest standards. Go to Lelands.com and get your bid in. That's Leland's, the hobby's leading sports auction house for 4 decades.
It's often been said that championships are won on the practice field, and world records come only to those willing to work harder than everybody else. Heritage Auctions is the world's largest collectibles auctioneer because we believe that becoming the best is only an invitation to the challenge of remaining the best. This requires the skills of the hobby's top experts, capable of identifying and maximizing value for our consigners. It requires the most visited website in the industry, courting a global audience of collectors over 1.5 million strong. It requires a dedicated press department that expands our global reach far beyond the entrenched hobby marketplace. It's hard work, but a simple premise. Present the finest collectibles to the largest population of potential buyers, and world records will come. We invite all listeners to put the unmatched power of Heritage Auctions to work for you. Auction evaluations are always free, and our commission-based fee structure ensures that our interests are always aligned. The highest possible price for your collectibles. There will always be new world records to chase, so let's chase them together. Visit our website at ha.com and request your no-obligation review today.
Hi, this is Dan from Memory Lane Auctions, here to remind you that the renowned Memory Lane Collectibles Company has served as a beacon of light to the collecting community for the past several decades. Indeed, folks, it has been our utmost privilege and pleasure to provide the most enthusiastic collectors with an abundance of the finest sports cards and memorabilia for America's most coveted sports personalities via our world-class auctions. Whether you choose either a private sale transaction or the auction route, Memory Lane cordially invites you to reach out to us to maximize the value of your prized possessions. Also, it is not just sales that we pride ourselves on being the best of the rest, because if you are seeking a particular keepsake for your esteemed gathering, we will be relentless in our quest to find that special piece to fulfill your collecting dreams. So no time to wait. Reach out to us today for the purposes of capitalizing on our unparalleled marketing capabilities. Simply pick up the phone and dial 877-606-5263. That's 877-606-LANE, or find us on the World Wide Web at www.memorylaneinc.com. Now is the time for your valued consignment to ultimately become another one of Memory Lane's record-setting prices.
Hey, I'm Mike Petroselli. If your company is looking for the best in marketing and promotional items, you'll hit a home run with Petroselli Marketing. With over 8,000 suppliers and 650,000 imprint-ready items, we can get your company the visibility it needs to get your maximum exposure. Whether it be office promotions, wearables, automotive, sports items, and everything in between, Petroselli Marketing can do it all. Our design staff will even work with you from concept to delivery and customize your products. At Petroselli Marketing Group, we will get your brand in front of your audience. Contact us at info@petrosellimkt.com or call us at 603-880-3202. That's Petroselli Marketing, where no dream is impossible.
Hey, for the best on-time service and new ideas for your next project, give Petroselli Marketing Group a call. They're at 800-264-4294, or go to their website at petrosellimkt.com.
In a couple of weeks, Michael's going to be joining us.
Yeah.
Good kid. Mike's a good kid.
Yeah, he is.
All right, listen, Jared's in the house. Jared Kavlie from Pristine Auctions. Jared, how are you?
Hey, Jared.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Jared, do you know Joe? Have you guys ever met?
Joe Orlando?
What's that?
I said, do you know Joe? Have you guys ever met?
I definitely know him. I don't know. I'm sure we've crossed paths, but I don't know if I've directly met him, actually.
Oh, Joe, say hi to Jared.
Jared and Joe, hey.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Jared, listen, we were talking about Pristine Auctions. You guys are dramatically different than many of the other auction houses. Very, very unique in what you do. You have 10-minute auctions. Tell us about the 10-minute auction just out of the gate, for instance.
Yeah, that's one of our more popular ones. So on our site every day on a schedule, I think it starts, of course, every time zone's different. It starts at noon our time here in Arizona. So I guess that'd be 3 p.m. Eastern. So 10 items are live for 10 minutes, and there's no extended bidding. So it's pretty rapid fire. So as soon as those 10 are done, 10 more pop up, and they're only live for 10 minutes. Something to watch. We just actually added to that the ability. So it used to be you can only, if you're here, you can see it. If not, you're not going to see what's coming, which was kind of fun. And I did like that. But we added now that you can actually look at the future auction. So today's auction, if you log onto the website, you can see everything that's scheduled for today in the 10 minute. And that way you can come on once, you can set up your alerts, and then you don't have to stick around the entire time. You can kind of look through the auction and then bounce and wait for your alerts. So
Very interesting.
Makes it a little more usable.
What type of items do you have in those 10 items? Is it all baseball, or, it's a mixture?
So there's a variety. It's just, to be honest, I don't even know often what's popping up. And there's some pretty high value things periodically that pop up there. Yeah. And then we got on Sundays, we theme it with sports cards. So there's singles, graded raw, there's boxes. So we try to theme it as much as we can, just sports cards on Sunday. But otherwise, it's everything is in there.
Yeah.
And then you also have your classic auctions, elite auctions, coin auctions. Fine art, a little of everything. How many employees do you have, Jared?
We're a little over 100.
Little over 100 employees,
Yeah.
so it's a good-sized company.
Yep.
Very good-sized company.
Yeah. We got a great team.
Tell us about the Kevin Harvick Foundation, because you guys do a lot of charity work. Can you tell us about the Kevin Harvick Foundation?
Yeah, so that one just finished. We do a lot of charitable work with NASCAR drivers in general. It's something that I'm passionate about, the sport. And so we've gotten to know a lot of the drivers and have worked with a lot of their foundations. So we actually just finished with the Dale Jr. Foundation. We did the glove auction. Every year they have all the drivers at Bristol wore Dale Jr. gloves. We auctioned those off for his charity. We just finished one with Kevin Harvick's foundation. And that just, I think that just finished yesterday. Kyle Larson's foundation we work with and do something with him every year. So yeah, we definitely, really enjoy the sport. The NASCAR community is awesome. So we've really enjoyed getting to know some of those guys and then help out their charities whenever we can. Yeah,
I was just thinking of NASCAR. It's kind of a niche, right? Not everybody loves it. We have the up in New Hampshire Speedway.
Oh, sure. But it is a niche, though. You're right.
Yeah, but I'm saying that place is packed.
They're passionate, though.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, definitely passionate fans for sure.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting sport. Several years ago, I really wasn't paying attention, but as I started to get to know the sport a little bit, I know a lot of people think it's just going around in ovals, and of course that's a lot of it.
Sure.
But there's so much more to the sport. And if you just go spend a weekend at the racetrack and just understand what goes into these cars and how much passion there is behind, with each race team and how many people are on each race team, I think that's eye-opening for a lot of people. And that becomes interesting, and when you have a horse in the race, if you pick a driver, get to know a driver, and that's really how I got into it. We worked with Kyle Larson. He was the first autograph signing we did in the NASCAR community. And so he was the guy I was watching. And so I was super passionate. My kids got into it, and we were hardcore Kyle Larson fans. And then it kind of evolved from there. We got to know some other guys.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, I know you have to run. You've got about a pretty full day ahead of you. Joe Orlando, Executive Vice President, Heritage Auctions. Your website address, Joe, is ha.com.
.com for the big one. And you were interrupting me. I was just scrolling through Pristine Auction.
He does that all the time.
So, but yeah, we ha.com or sports.ha.com if you're looking just to go to the sports.
All right, Joe, thanks for joining us. Joe, Jared, you're going to stick with us. Fabulous. Joe's got to run. Joe, say hi to the gang. Joe. Say hi to Chris and Derek.
Take care.
We'll talk to you.
Good to see you.
Take care. Joe Orlando, Executive Vice President. Hey, Jared, let's talk about some of the other. You do history, you do music, you do pop culture, soccer. Wrestling, a little of everything. Where does this stuff come from? Does it just filter into, or do you have specific guys that work for you that go out and seek wrestling memorabilia or music memorabilia? How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, nearly everything is consigned to us. Probably 99% of what you see in our auction is consigned. And we've just developed relationships over the years with a lot of people in the business that work primarily directly with athletes. So, a lot of the stuff you see in our auction is more, I'd call it more approachable for the everyday fan. We don't necessarily get the $100,000 Babe Ruth bat, the other guys that you spoke to. Heritage is probably one of the places you'll find that. However, we are growing that category. So one thing we just did is our elite auction just became a no reserve format.
Oh, really?
And we only have 100 spots for that. So that's been really popular. Consigners are kind of fighting over those spots because we do a lot of marketing there. And that's growing a little more of our premium category. But always our bread and butter is going to be the everyday collector. We really want to cater to every budget. I think we've done that really well. And the elite auction is going to add to that.
Well, something, it's funny that you mentioned that because I get input from collectors, especially when I'm speaking to them, like at the National, and you're dead on. I mean, you guys have a niche, and again, we've always called it the 80-20 rule. And you guys really appeal to that 80%, maybe 90% of the market that is not going to spend $500,000 on a game used bat or a T206 Wagner. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But that's in my opinion, that's a very strong, that is the strongest part of the hobby, is that market that goes after the stuff that you guys are auctioning off. Isn't that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely something we've always, really from the start, we've all, and myself as a collector too, I always wanted our auction to appeal to really everybody and be approachable. So I think that speaks to our team too. We've got such a great team here. I think our entire team's very approachable. We love interacting with our buyers, our sellers, to go to the shows. I think that's something that's always set us apart is our team's just got a great team.
We've got a couple of minutes left. Can you give us a little background on the company? How long did you buy the company? Did you start the company? Give us a little background on Pristine.
Yeah, for sure. So, I've just always been a collector. Out here, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. That's where we're based.
Yep.
And I've stayed here. One of the few guys who actually didn't get out of Phoenix based off the weather, But I started running around getting autographs. Spring training was here in town, fall league, things like that. And then I started getting into basketball. Obviously we have all the sports teams here. So I just started collecting on my own, and then eventually got so much stuff that I started dabbling with selling some of it. And it was some nice extra money, especially as a high schooler,
Sure.
So once I did that a little bit, I started to learn what I did and didn't like. I used some different auction houses. I used eBay. All great platforms, but there were things I did and didn't like about each. And so we decided in 2010, my wife and I just talked and said, hey, let's give it a shot. Let's do our own. So we started, I paid some guys in Canada like $3,000 to start our original website. We were off and running. And so I started with my own collection. And then very shortly after, we were always open as a consignment shop.
Sure.
But, you can't out of the gate get consignments. You sort of got to prove your value. So, man, my wife and I were just plugging away anywhere we could talk about our business for free. So one place we would go is like Craigslist, right? It's a little tricky, but if you go plug away at Craigslist, you can get some free ads up there and send people to your website. I think it's probably harder now, but 10 years ago it was a little bit easier. And so we would just, as much as we could, we took on no debt, we took on no investors. We just put on our bootstraps and tried to make it work on our own.
That's an amazing.
And slowly we started getting some consigners, some really good consigners that have been with us kind of the entire time, and took good care of them, and that's kind of how it grew.
It's an amazing story. Can I ask we have about a minute and a half. May I ask, and you don't have to share it, what your revenue is a year, like in auctions?
Yeah. We're about right around 90 million at this point.
90 million.
Yeah.
Also, you have a newsletter, right? And give information, right, to collectors. And what other information do you have on it? Your newsletter.
Yeah, I mean, we have a whole marketing team here that's sending stuff out really on a daily basis, just letting people know what's going on in our auction, for sure.
Something, man. These are the stories we love to hear.
Yeah, it's amazing.
A guy and his wife start a company, just at the bottom, and you're a $90 million company. God bless you and congratulations.
Yeah, that's great.
So, what is your website?
Yeah, we've been blessed for sure.
Oh,
yeah, pristineauction.com.
Pristineauctions.com. Jared, thanks so much, man. We love having you. You've been a great sponsor since day. You've been a sponsor for this show now for 7 years. I don't know if you realize that. Wow. 7.5 years.
Yeah.
We've been on the air. And
time flies when you're having fun, man.
Oh, we have a good time with it.
Thanks, Ted. Thank you.
I think we're out of time.
All right.
Have a great week.
And you too. See you,
Jared. Jared, best
All right,
to your
thank you,
family.
guys.
Take
And
care.
to our viewers and audience, happy collecting.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.